Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of the Jada Diaries. Last week, we ended with the story of me hemorrhaging after delivery. Um, Chad didn't know if I was going to survive. My family didn't know if I was going to survive. And quite frankly, the doctors didn't know for a while there how this was going to end, but they did an amazing job.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, you lost all the blood in your body. All of it had to be completely transfused. And, a lot of times when we think back to it, it's like, wow, like people that give blood. I know I've given blood before. It's amazing. And for those who haven't, you should definitely try or go and do it. It's really easy. But the fact that the hospital we were at had those, supplies for you is incredible. Because I think you can say if you were at a different place, things could have been different.
Yeah, this is the part that's been tough for me. Um, because I think after everything happened and I was told everything, I became really interested in understanding, what happened and immediately went to how do I find other women in this situation? How do I help other people? And I was really disheartened to learn, excuse me, that there are women that don't make it because of the fact that doctors don't act fast enough or they live in rural areas. I recently watched a documentary. It's called Peerless Passage on HBO Max, and it was devastating. There was one man on there raising his little daughter alone, wife, similar situation where she hemorrhaged. But so this is a story I've heard two different times now. One was the woman hemorrhaged after she had already been sewn up.
Wow.
So, like, this is where I've heard of two different big stories. One is with the March of Dimes. They were like a face family for the organization. Yeah, two different stories. And I know there's so many more out there where they go back to the room, the postpartum essentially, and then they start hemorrhaging internally. But no doctor's like right there to do anything. And so this one, both stories, they're like saying to the doctors, I think something's wrong. I think something's wrong. She's saying she don't feel right. And, you know, they, the ORs are booked, right? So that's the part that I thank God every day. It's like, this is terrible to think women are dying from this.
What?
Women are dying from just simply it happening later and then being in a hospital room and they're not being, I mean, anyone who's been to the hospital, right? The most important part of the day is when the doctor comes by. But then once they leave, you may not see them again for hours to the next day. And so these stories of women and men, husbands sitting there saying, I think something's wrong. I think something's wrong. And by the time they get them in the OR, they're dead. They've lost too much blood. There's nothing they can do. And now they're left with these babies and no mother. And that's what this story was. And then the other story was about the rural hospitals and literally just being in a facility that didn't have enough blood, didn't have that certain blood type, right? By the time the woman was airlifted and taken to where they needed to be, it was too late.
Yeah.
And that easily could have been me if I wasn't in a facility such as amazing as WakeMed, who had the resources, had the doctors, could act so quickly. I don't think I have a lot of time.
That would have been you. You would have been one of those statistics. And one thing that really that stood out to me is one of the doctors said that having a baby now, especially when you do a C-section, you're opening this person up. You don't see that in surgeries anymore. Like maybe open heart surgery is the only other massive surgery where you're opening somebody up. So this still is, giving birth 2026 is still something that is very dangerous. And I think a lot of people get lost in, the wonders and miracle of having a child, which those things are. But again, you got to balance that out with like it's still a major surgery that you have to come back from.
I literally thought of pregnancy and birth as easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I wanted to have a baby in the bathtub.
We did, yeah.
I mean, I was so like, my mom went all natural and I thought that was so cool. And I just loved the idea of like birthing at home and a doula and all natural. And it clearly was the total opposite of that in every way. But I had no idea that giving birth could end with something so scary and losing life. And I think that's the part that I, in hindsight now, and I'm not saying this to scare anybody because it is still not the norm,
Correct.
but I'm telling this to say if you find yourself in a situation where you are high risk, definitely know there are resources out there. Feel free to ask the questions. Make sure you're set up in a situation, if you can, where you have those kind of resources, right? And again, just ask the questions, right? I would do that all the time to the point they were so annoyed with me. I'd be like, okay, well, if it's not enough blood now, when is it going to be enough blood? And what is that going to look like? And what would I do? That helped my anxiety to have the information. It was the not knowing and the not having the information that made it worse. So that's what I would say is even if it's you feel like, oh, I'm inconveniencing, I'm asking too many questions, that's what they're there for. And if you, again, if you can't see the doctor, write them down, right? Just take the notes. And when they come in, use the time to ask all those questions.
Yeah, and work with your partner. You talk to your husband about it. Have him write them down. Have him be the advocate for you as well, because you're in this situation, and there are so many unknowns that could possibly happen. You need to know everything, and your husband needs to be locked into that as well.
Yeah.
And you said something too. The hospital you're at was extremely well equipped to handle what happened to you. Also, they had a level 4 NICU, which was huge as well. And that kind of transitions well into what we talked about last time. Now you're in the ICU after the birth because you need to wait for your next surgery. So, at this point, I am waiting for you to get out of that initial surgery, and Juliet's in the NICU. So I'm kind of in between these two places, mind racing still, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. So I wait for you because we'd never talked about this. We never talked about, if you couldn't see Juliet at the same time I saw Juliet, what do we do? So I was torn and had this strange feeling of like, I can't go see Juliet until I know Emily knows I'm going to see her. Is that weird? I feel like that. I'm not sure we've talked about that much, but no.
Oh, I mean, I think, yeah, again, you don't know. You don't have these kinds of conversations. And we are the type of couple that has weird conversations. Like I will always throw a hypothetical in there, like, hey, what if I lost my leg? How would we deal with that? Or like I do, but this one threw us. We were not prepared for this. So I think what you're saying is you felt bad that you were holding her before me.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember waiting for you, and then you finally got out of surgery. And just to kind of set the stage and picture, you're intubated, which means you can't speak, and you had to stay intubated until your next surgery, which is a couple days. So at that point, you're communicating with me on a piece of paper. You have probably every sedative in the hospital, flowing through you, and you're still writing notes. The doctors are looking at me like, "What? This lady is wild. Like she does not want to go out. She wants to see her daughter. She will do anything to get there, and she's writing every note possible. Let me see Juliet. Oh, what's happening? What happened to me?" Um,
Again, I don't remember any of this, but
mhm,
I remember after all of it was said and done, they were essentially like, we have no idea how you were capable of writing those notes.
mhm.
Like I remember Dr. P, shout out Dr. P. I'll talk more about him, love him. He's one of the NICU doctors. He's like, I came in to see you and you were asking me incredibly coherent. We were writing me incredibly coherent questions about Juliet.
But
And I'm
yeah,
literally intubated, like just set the scene. There's beeping everywhere, there's IVs everywhere. I'm intubated. I cannot talk. I should have been unconscious or at least to a point of chilling out.
you were not
And
that.
I was not. I was like writing questions and they were good questions. And so I have 9 pages that I saved, you saved, and now
Yeah.
I have them. And I remember my dad told me at one point, I guess I was getting mad. Like I was getting really angry that no one was letting me see Juliet. And of course, I didn't understand all of what was happening. But my dad was like, at one point, you swung your leg over the bed like you were going to get up and run.
Yep. It just goes to show you how driven you were to go and see our daughter. And that was something that I'll never forget because that's who you are. You're always going to show up for Juliet. You're always going to be an advocate for her and for me too and for our family.
Yeah.
And that's the core of who you are as a person. Um, so that will always stick with me.
Yeah. And it made me proud of myself. It also made me really fascinated about my brain. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Amen. If you don't know him or follow him, you should. But he does brain scans on people. And I'm like, I really want one of those brain scans because there's something interesting going on in this brain that I could be essentially like that shouldn't have happened, right? So it's, like, really interesting to I would be really interested to get a brain scan. So Dr. Amen call or message me. I really do want one of those brain scans, though, because I think mine would be an interesting study.
I'm very interested to see what's going on there too.
Yeah.
Um,
So after all of this, I remember finally coming to. I had a second surgery 3 days later, and I was finally waking up, and what was really interesting is I remember the nurse kinda trying to ask me questions about things, and I didn't remember that I had a baby.
yeah, it took you a second to sort of come to and realize, oh yeah, like this happened to my body.
No,
Okay.
it
Oh no.
never happened.
Oh, okay.
That didn't happen until years later in therapy,
Mm,
because it was like I remember being pregnant.
yeah.
I don't remember the birthing process at all.
Right.
So what I processed later with my therapist is that, like, my body and brain was off about what had happened. Like, I didn't birth her in a way that my body and brain fully processed. So that's why when I woke up and they're like, "You have a baby," and I'm like, "What do you mean I have a baby?" Like, it hadn't registered to me that that process all happened. And so I remember, though, I was in a lot of pain. Like, I
Hmm.
felt like I had been tied to the back of a truck and just drugged down I-40
Yeah.
while people threw stones at me. Like, every single part of my body hurt so bad. And I remember this sweet nurse, you know, coming to me that night and giving me more medicine, and then I fell back asleep, and that was pretty much all I really remember for the first day. The second day was really rough because I'd been intubated for a long period of time. That's part of the reason I've always had kind of a scratchy, raspy voice, but it's been worse ever since this happened because the trauma of being intubated and then taking it out, and I had to breathe into this machine that would, like, measure your lung output, and I remember my breathing, and he's like, "You have to try harder," and I'm like, "I am trying as hard as I possibly can, like, I can't go," and essentially, until I could get up and walk that hall, I couldn't go see Julia. I had to be able to do that, and so I just sucked it up buttercup. I'm like, "I don't care how much pain I'm in, I'm getting up and I'm walking." And I do remember you had taken a break at this point because you were exhausted. You were by my side this whole time, and so it was my mom who was with me,
Hmm.
and I just told her, like, "I don't care, I'm getting up, I'm going." And I walked, like, so slow down that hall, but I made it so I could go see her because that's all I wanted to do.
Yep.
And my feet were swollen. They look like elephant feet because, again, I had lost all the blood in my body. So essentially everything had been shut down and then rebooted. Right. And so, think about when you shut your phone down and then you reboot it. It takes a minute. Right. And so my body was just really, it had just gone through so much and it was struggling to get back going. And so then it was time to go to the NICU.
Hmm.
And you had already been, I mean, I guess you've been going, what, every day and sitting with her and holding her, or
Yep. So when we had that conversation, you said, "Go, go." I went to the NICU, um, did skin to skin, and I would do that periodically. So I was essentially sitting with you most of the time, and then I'd have a family member come in, my mom, your dad, my dad, whoever, come in and sit with you, and then I would go see Juliet in the NICU for a couple hours, do skin to skin, and then once you were able to, I there's a picture that we have of when we first saw her, and
When I first saw her.
yeah, when we both saw her together, and the first time you were able to do skin to skin, it's amazing. Maybe we can put it up just to show
Yeah.
people, but it's literally Emily in the chair. I mean, you're glowing even though you've been through all of this. You can see like just that the joy that you have, and then Juliet, who's all of what a few days old, is just on your chest like
It's the sweetest thing, like,
beaming.
her poor little head is only this big. You can see her little smile.
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, I'm with mom."
It was amazing.
It was so cool, and, I'm so glad you took so many pictures and videos during this time because I talked about in the last episode being disassociated. When I got into the NICU, I think that disassociation really ramped up.
hmm
And what I mean by that is, like, I tend to be the kind of person that when I'm in a tough situation, it's just about getting through it. What's the next thing I need to do? What's the next thing I need to do? What's the next thing I need to do? And I don't process it at that time,
Not in the moment.
not in the moment. And
Yeah.
so it's almost like if you were to just like run, 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 and never really take a break to take water or never really eat, right? Eventually you would give out.
You'd be
And that's
exhausted.
been a cycle of mine that I think I've finally started to break, but that's been a cycle. Go, go, go hard and then sort of plateau and be burnt out. And so in the beginning of this NICU journey, I was scared, I was uncomfortable. I was struggling with making that connection with Juliet because it felt so foreign, like this was my baby and I knew that and I loved her so much. And there's wires everywhere and there's beeping and I'm scared I'm going to hurt her. I'm scared I'm going to accidentally pull something out. So that was a very odd feeling.
It is. And when you first see a child in a NICU, there are wires everywhere. They could be in an incubator. There's beeping. It is intimidating. And even just giving your baby a bath or doing these types of things, which I'm sure is obviously new and different for new parents, but for a preemie, it's just exacerbated because all of these things are going on. And that took a while to get used to.
Yeah. And I think if you've been in the NICU, you know this. If you haven't, there's a very strict, laborious hand washing process that you have to go through before you get in to see your baby. Because again, you're talking these itty bitty babies, you can't have germs. And I remember that really stressed me out. I can remember every day standing at that sink, washing my hands. Like that was something I remember very distinctively, just focusing on wash my hands. Please don't make a mistake. Please don't do anything wrong. And I think that was so scary, right? Because it's like you already feel like that as a new parent. You don't know what you're doing. I'm recovering from the trauma of what my body had went through. And now I'm worried again that I'm going to hurt her somehow, that I'm going to do something to mess this up. And I think that's the piece that is important to highlight here is like I've always been a person that wants to be perfect or wants to do things right. But when you're in a situation where if you do something wrong, it could lead to something really, really bad, that's a level of stress that I think started ramping up my anxiety to a really unhealthy place because I didn't want to do anything wrong. I didn't want to have come this far and then make a mistake that was going to hurt her. And so I think that was probably one of the most stressful parts of this time. But I will say our schedule, we did fall into a schedule. We always made sure we were there in the morning when the doctors would come. That was super important to me because I wanted to hear from the doctor whatever the report was for the day. Um, and
Well, you'd call all throughout the night too, right?
yeah,
When we were home, and this was great advice. Uh, you shouldn't stay there all day long, all day night, all during the night. The nurses are absolutely fantastic. They're wonderful. They're there, and we called 2 or 3 times a night. When you get up, you be pumping, which she made a massive amount of milk, which
Yeah.
was incredible.
That was not supposed to happen. They were like, "I have no idea how you're making this much milk after losing all the blood in your body."
Mhm.
But it was really important because NICU babies need milk from mother not NICU babies, I'm sorry, premature babies who are in the NICU need milk from mothers who have given birth to a premature baby. There's a special, proteins, nutrients that come from a mother who's delivered preterm that the preterm babies really need in order to thrive. And so I was producing so much milk, I wanted to donate it
Mhm.
because it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if baby's your not baby or not. Any preterm baby can very much benefit from a mother who's given birth preterm and her milk. But I couldn't because I had
The
blood
transfusion.
transfusions. Yes, I couldn't donate it. But I was producing a lot of milk, and that is something, again, hard things, but also so many blessings.
Mhm.
It was such a blessing that I was able to produce that milk because Juliet needed it so bad. And that, right, there goes something where I'm like, okay, that I can do. I can pump, that I know I can do. And so I started to focus on the things that I could do, the things that I could control in a situation where so much felt out of control. And that became what I focused on. So the things we did, I held her all day long.
Skin to skin.
Skin to skin. They told me
Mhm.
premature babies on your skin, very good for them. So skin to skin, I can do that. Milk, they need that. That's important. I can do that. Right. Talk to the doctors, ask questions, do research if you have, I can do that. Um, Connect with other people. I can do that. I started connecting with other NICU families. That was huge because, you know, it's a lot and you're just looking for someone to understand you, to say, to share stories that it's going to be okay. That was big for me. I loved reading the articles and hearing the antidotes of babies like mine who are now, 3 and in
Mhm.
gymnastics class. Like that really helped me. And one of the things I'll get emotional about is I talked about this in the last episode, the people that showed up along the way. And there was a NICU doctor, his name's Dr. Perciaconti, and he's at Wake Med. And I don't know if he'll ever know, what he did for us and how much he helped us. But I remember he came in the first time I had met him and he had heard the story of what happened to me. Obviously, had met me before. I'd written him notes, apparently, didn't know that. And he was just so vulnerable with us. And he really saw us and how much we were struggling and how scared we were. And he was so kind and
Mm.
so helpful throughout the whole process. And he knew that I needed him and needed to hear what he had to say. And he would answer personal emails for me and he would go out of his way to stop by. That meant everything to us
Mhm.
because in a world where I was so scared and so unsure, I knew that as long as he was with us in that process, things were going to be okay.
Absolutely. And we connected with him on a really personal level, you know, and to have doctors like that that are connected with you makes the process easier in a process that is so incredibly difficult.
Right.
And
And he's the one. And here's another thing. He was very honest with us all along the way.
mm,
And that's something I really appreciated. He was very straight with us. He told us, I'll let you know if there's ever anything we need to discuss. And so one of the things that Juliet started to struggle with was eating.
mhm,
She couldn't get the hang of sucking, swallowing, and breathing all at the same time because she was a preemie. And that's something that you learn later on in utero.
correct.
So eating is something we take for granted, right?
Mhm.
What do you mean you have to learn how to eat? That was just bizarre to me, right? I didn't know, I'd heard about the lungs and I'd heard about the brain, but that was something I totally didn't expect, right? Again, this is always a story about things we don't expect. It felt like that was just the story of our lives. But we didn't expect that she was going to struggle with eating.
Yeah. And this was something that would ultimately keep us in the NICU for almost 3 months, 88 days.
We were constantly told that Juliet was doing amazing. She
Mhm.
never had any episodes of, you know, heart issues or breathing issues. She was a rock star. They kept calling her the
Mm.
rock star,
Yeah.
right? She's the rock star of the NICU. I think at one point, didn't they tell you like she's so patient?
Yeah. Well, and she didn't have any Brady's, which was something that we heard from other nurses, which was, scary in terms of the breathing.
No, but what did they tell you about she's so patient and lets us take care of
Oh,
her?
yeah, yeah. Whenever they're, it's like taking tubes out or anything like that, she's just was very, I don't say obedient, but she was just calm. And that kind of carries through to today. But one of the things is the nasal cannula, which is how she ate. So they'd take that out and put
Oh
it
my
back in,
god.
and she didn't have any issues
Oh
doing
yeah.
that.
I'm telling you, they always tell you NICU babies are so strong. That girl is strong. Like, she got her tonsils out, no biggie.
She was just looking forward to the popsicle
Yeah,
afterwards.
like, she rotated medicine, like Tylenol and Motrin and stuff, but she wasn't like, "Oh, I'm in so much pain." She's just a tough cookie.
Yeah,
She's a
100%.
toughie. The other day, she skinned her knee at school. They called me to tell me, she skinned her knee. She called me. And she's like, "Hi, mommy." I'm like, "Hey, are you okay?" "Yeah, I skinned my knee." "Okay, well, do you need anything? Do you want me to pick you up?" "No, I'm all right." "Okay." So I pick her up. I'm like, "Did you cry?" She's like, "No, I'm tough."
And I guess the school makes you call, and she's like, I don't really need to, but I guess I can.
She's just tough. And this whole experience, she was like that. She was a happy baby, so happy.
Mhm.
Everyone loved her. Everyone loves her to this day. And I remember hearing a comment that she looked wise.
Yeah.
Like there's something in her eyes that looks like she's an old soul.
Kind of looked like she was in contemplation,
Yeah,
right? Thinking, even at that young age.
100%. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and I think I've just always been so in awe of her. And I think through this process, that was something that, I had to early on learn how to separate myself from her, right? Which is really hard to do. You're a brand new mother. But I had to, right? I was recovering. I had to sleep. I went to the NICU every single day and I was there every single day. But at night, I had to come home.
Mhm.
I had to sleep. I had to pump. We had to take care of our dogs. Um, and so I think this is where the word surrender comes in. I had to surrender to these doctors and these nurses. I'm going to love them and I'm going to let them love me. And I'm going to let them love my baby.
Absolutely.
And
Y
I'm going to step aside and I'm going to do what I need to do for me right now and trust that I have a bigger team of people. When they say it takes a village, like we were in that village and it was
Absolutely.
a village of people we didn't know a week prior.
And it goes back to how I always go back to this visual is put your own oxygen mask on first, right? And that was a exercise of you doing that and you prioritizing your health. Because if you're not good, then you're not going to be able to show up for Juliet or our family. And
Right.
we both had to do that. That was something that we both needed to do. And to your point, the doctors, the nurses are just so incredibly amazing, and they didn't make you, right? You could stay there, that's fine, but they were like, "You guys need to go home. Go to a dinner. Go treat yourself to something.
Yeah.
Get out of here. We got everything covered here. Don't worry about anything. You can always call if you have a question. You
Well,
can always call and check in."
as I got to know them, because, I'm a talker and there's nurses that I'm still friends with today. I came in one day and I had been my birthday and she was still in there and she had made me this beautiful like happy birthday from Juliet
Mhm.
and it had her picture on it and they didn't have to do that.
I remember that. That was amazing. I think she put, like, a little handprint on it and everything. And it's those little touches of nurses who care, and they know people that are going through this are struggling.
Yeah.
It's just not easy. and them showing up like that really made the whole experience a lot easier for us.
Me because once we got to Wakeman North, like, that's where it really started to just feel like a family. Like, I would go there, and it felt like I was at my apartment or, like, Juliet's apartment. It felt like an extension of our home. And when it really started to feel like that is I would come in, and I remember one of the nurses had her out of I had her in her little bouncy seat. It was, like, playing music,
Mhm.
and it was so cool. It was like every time I went there, it was like I don't know, I can't explain the feeling, but it was like I was just visiting and it was extended aunties, right?
Mhm.
Juliet was just with her aunties playing, hanging out.
Yep, and they greet you with a warm chocolate chip cookie as you come into the hospital. That was absolutely fantastic. Love that. But, so we transferred from Wake Med to Wake Med North, essentially just a different hospital closer to our house. Another thing the doctor suggested, which was awesome.
Yeah, they went
Um
out of their way to make sure. And so at this point, we were getting frustrated though, because
Mhm.
the only thing keeping us in there was that she wouldn't eat. And we tried feeding. We had a beautiful feeding therapist that worked
Mm-mm.
with her. They do all kinds of like swallowing tests. Because again, we don't really know. They don't know yet why this is happening. Is it the brain? Is it that she has some sort of impediment? Is it this? Is it that? Is it this? Is it that? And so we were getting to the point where we were going to have a conversation because as you get closer to full term, the baby needs to be with its parents. It needs to be out of the hospital, right? And so medically, she was clear. She was good to go,
Mhm.
but you can't go home and not eat unless there are measures put in place. And so I was getting a little concerned.
Mhm.
And Dr. P, sure enough, called me and you and said, "Hey, I think we're going to have to talk about a feeding tube."
Yeah, and I was pretty calm throughout the whole NICU stay, other than getting through the first hump, but when I heard that, that was something that shook me, because I'm here feeding tube, okay, she has the nose thing. What do you mean feeding tube? So essentially, feeding tube is would be a surgery that Juliet would have to go through where they put a tube directly into their stomach.
Yeah, but why were you
Yep.
so? I remember not understanding why you were so upset because I remember we kind of got into a fight about it because I was like, she needs to come home.
Yep.
The goal is to get her home. I don't care what we have to do to get her home. And I was kind of mad at you.
Yeah. I I'm somebody that wants to understand and know all the options, and I had just went through a surgery seeing you like that, and in my head, I'm like, "I'm gonna go through another surgery with Juliet where she's getting cut open." I'm like, "Oh, man, it was a lot."
Okay. So
So,
it was kind of a trauma informed response.
yeah, and it was, "Okay, I don't wanna do that again.
Okay.
Is there anything else we can do to try and do something different?" So, Dr. P, being the gracious doctor he is, knowing what the outcome probably most likely would be,
Yeah, he knew.
he said, "Okay, we can, take her off the feeding tube, try to feed by mouth and see what happens." And Juliet just wasn't quite to that point yet where she was eating by mouth and gaining weight.
Right.
So after 2 days of that, I throw my hands up and say, "All right, let's do it." So that sort of set us out to the process of getting the feeding tube, and going on that route.
Yeah. So I remember that day she wasn't eating, she was losing weight, and I was shook at that point because up until this point I was like, yep, whatever. She's being too no biggie. And I remember I went to the wall. I said, I need a minute. I said to you, I need a minute
Yeah.
because I didn't want to blow a gasket in there. And I drove my car across the street from Lake Bend North to that Walgreens, if you know, on the corner there. And I just broke down. I was just, I just felt like, Lord, I'm getting to my limit.
Yeah.
Now you're telling me we got to put a feeding tube in. Now we got to have another surgery. Not only that, but we have to transport our baby now back in an ambulance from Wake Med North to Big Wake to have the surgery. I was getting to a point where I felt like I was going to explode. And mind you, all the things that have led up to this. We're now in September. I started bleeding in March.
Yep.
Like, I need this to be done.
Yeah, we're going on like 6 months
It was eight.
in and out of hospitals.
Take me for 88 days.
Yep. And then plus the time you're in the hospital, it's like we are done with
We're
hospitals.
done. I got to get out of here. And so I processed my feelings. I broke down. And then it was mission, let's go. We made the decision, get the freaking thing in, get out. Like,
Absolutely.
I was on a mission. I was like, let's go. Like, I was like, what's those people? What's a woman like a
A marathon runner,
no, like someone in the movie that kicks the door down.
a superhero,
Yeah.
superwoman.
Superwoman. I was like, let's go. Put my cape on, suit me up,
Let's
put me in, coach.
let's do it.
Let's go. So we were on. We go to big week. We get everything ready for the surgery. The surgery went well, but I was freaking out the whole time. I felt sick in my stomach. That 45 minutes felt like 3 days.
Yeah, it was not comfortable at all.
It was so scary. And they came out, they're like, she's good, let's go. And I remember I said to the nurse, I'm like, I'm gonna be out of here in 2 days. And she's like, you ain't gonna be out of here in 2 days. I said, watch and see. Come see me back in 2 days. I was out of there in 2 days.
Yep.
So the rule is once a feeding tube surgery happened, and of course they have to make sure she's good and everything like this. Once we could stay one night and prove that we knew how to, work the feeding tube, which is a whole process. And that felt like a whirlwind, right? Because you're trying to hear what they're saying and you're like, whatever. I'll figure it out, right? I'm like, I'll figure it out. I just gotta go. I gotta get out of here. And she was good. And I finally got to put her little outfit on that I had ordered from Etsy so many months prior. She finally kind of fit into it. It was
Yeah.
still too big, but and again, maybe let's refer back to, she was 2 pounds.
2 pounds, 12 ounces.
We don't ever get the ounces part right. She was under 3 pounds,
Yeah. Yeah.
like the size of your hand.
Yeah. She was, if I put my hand up, her head probably overlapped it by an inch or two. But think about, the size of a grown man's hand is how big she was when she was born. And then she was a little bit bigger than that when we took her home, but she was still very, very small.
And she was still very, very small. And so I loaded her up. We got her in the car seat, and I have pictures. She's smiling. She has her cute little hat on and her booties and her custom made dress that had her name on it. And they wheeled us out, and Chad went and got the car, and we put her in the car and we drove home
Very slowly.
very slowly. And I just kept looking at her like, I feel like that's when it became real that we had a baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If it was like we're taking her home and it was like, okay, now she's mine and now I get to take care of her.
Yeah. It's now on us. We get to do things the way we want to do them. We still have support of, doctors and checkups and all that. So we had that a bit of a security blanket,
Yeah.
but now it's on us and we get to be parents now.
Yeah.
It's full on.
And it's like something shifted where all of a sudden I became a mom. Like I really was like, okay, she's mine. And I get to just let my instincts kick in, whatever those turn out to be. But that's like when I think of her birthday, right? Yes, she was born on June 19th. But for me, when she got home, that was when we started to be a family,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because again, like we brought her home and the dogs are trying to lay on her and, you fell asleep with her on you. It was just like, that's the stuff that you think about when you want to start a family.
Absolutely. It felt the way it should feel when we were
Yeah.
home. Yep. And yes, we had to deal with the feeding tube and we had to deal with the fact that we were, had a premature baby. But ultimately, this was our family.
Yeah.
We're home now.
It's like the thing I said in episode 1 when I said I want to have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it was going to take almost 3 years and all this trauma, but it was like in that moment, it was there. And I've seen people write on, social media, they'll say like, try to remember when you're in that moment that you once prayed for.
Mm,
And I can remember that feeling like that. Like I prayed for this moment and now we're here. And in that moment, none of the other stuff mattered.
no,
It didn't matter all the things we went through because we were here. We were a family. She was home. And this is what I had prayed for.
absolutely. And this now shapes the rest of our life. This is now our family.
Yeah.
And to your point before, you said when she got home, I felt like, I'm a mom now.
Yeah.
And you coming into that shaped a lot of your life and how you think about things now
Yeah.
because you're different.
I'm so
You're a
different.
different person.
And we'll talk about this in future episodes, but a lot of the parenting choices that I've made, it has all come to me so instinctively.
Yep.
I do a lot of research and then I kind of vibe out like, does that connect? Does that connect? But coming into being a mom has felt like the most purpose driven thing I've ever done in my life. Like I, I feel like what Olympians must feel like if you're an Olympic swimmer, oh, you got in the pool. Like I was born to do that,
Yeah.
you know?
Just feels good. Feels right.
It just feels right. Like I'm born to be her mother. I feel like I'm now getting to use these experiences to live a purpose of us talking about these things, us talking about our marriage and what we're doing here. And it feels like, this is purposeful.
Absolutely.
This is what it feels like to live a purpose driven life.
Yeah. And all these experiences that we've had have informed the way we live now.
Correct.
And they were hard, very hard. And I wouldn't trade it for anything because we are at this point now in our life and it's beautiful.
And I say this a lot. I would not be the the mother I am today if all of this hadn't happened. And for that, I'm grateful because I like the mother that I am, and I like the wife that I am, and I like the friend and the person that I am. And the only way I've gotten here is God knew I had to go through all of that. And so I'm grateful. So we're gonna start ending episodes with what we're gonna call the last word. And I have the last word this week because I was watching The Ultimatum with Nick Lachey and Vanessa Lachey on Netflix, and last night was the last two episodes. And there was a proposal on there that stuck out to me and felt like one of the most beautiful proposals I've ever seen. Not because it was, fireworks or anything, but because of what he said. And he said to her, they'd been together a long time, like you and I. And he said to her, God created all things on earth. And after he would create each thing, he would say, and this is good,
Mhm.
right? Created the oceans and the land and the plants and the animals. And then he created man and knew that man needed a companion. And then he created Eve, who is the most beautiful of his creations. And he says, now this is really good.
Mm,
And he said, and this, meaning between the two of them, is really good. And I believe that God created you for me, just like Adam and Eve. And that was just so beautiful to me because, and you could tell the way it hit her because he was the one that issued the ultimatum. She was kind of unsure and she had to go through this journey to really see how much he loved her. And it was interesting because she had similar concerns, I think, to maybe some concerns that I had. I didn't really have them, and some of my friends had them, like, oh, Chad's, maybe not as ambitious as you or whatever. And she would say that, like, she, I think, realized through this process, like, those things are things you work out as a team, right? Finances, all the other things, you work that out, you figure it out. And we figured it out. We have tossed back and forth. We'll tell that story another time. But what's most important is how much you love me. and how much you will always show up for me. And that's what she said she realized through this process.
Mhm.
Is like those things don't matter because you love me more than anything. You love me more than anyone. And that's something that God did. And I believe that. I believe that with us. I believe that we were meant to be brought together. And so I just wanted to end with that hot take because I thought that was so beautiful.
I love it. I love it. I wish during our or my me asking you to get married, I did that. Let me give you a small taste of what I said, you know, at a cupcake shop, so that was cool, right?
Not only a cupcake shop, but you had "Will you marry me" on the cupcake.
Oh, yeah, I called before, but will you marry me on the cupcakes? And I'm down on one knee. I had all this stuff in my head that I would say. I was so nervous. The only thing that came out was, "You know I love you, right? Will you marry me?" Yeah. But hey, it worked. Maybe I'll try it again. Maybe I'll do it again
Yeah.
and, do a different
Well, so
speech.
we definitely do want to renew our vows. So
That'd be cool.
I think that would be so amazing. So anyway, that's my hot take. I hope you're enjoying the pod. Please do subscribe if you like this. We also really want you to submit some questions or comments, anything. Just kind of letting us know what's vibing with you, what's resonating,
Yeah.
you want to hear more of, or whatever. That's kind of, our dream with this podcast is for it to become something that builds community.
Mhm. Yeah, builds community, gets husbands and wives talking more, and we love to interact with you all and respond to comments and start to integrate some of that stuff into what we're talking about.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, y'all.